Good afternoon, everyone. So I'd like to introduce Edwin Ulak, our presenter today, and Trader's Vice President of Marketplace, who looks after Autotrader.ca online and mobile. Edwin came to us about a year ago from Autotrader UK, where he grew mobile traffic from 10 to 40%, and he's now driving the mobile growth here in Canada. Edwin oversaw the successful development of Autotrader.ca mobile apps across the three operating systems as they are today. Autotrader.ca's apps are top-rated across industries and getting astounding reviews and ratings. Since he took over at Autotrader, mobile traffic has grown to 20%, and the growth keeps accelerating. Edwin is unquestionably a leader in the mobile space here in Canada. Please welcome Edwin.
Great. Thank you very much, Isabel, and thank you, everybody, and welcome. The goal for today's short presentation is threefold. There's three things that I'd like to take you through. First, I'd like to just share some facts about mobile usage in Canada. Secondly, to look at how mobile is changing how car buyers are going about their purchase. And thirdly, and I think most importantly, to have a discussion with you on what the implications are of that change for savvy retailers today. Personally, I've in my role, I've had the privilege, I guess, of going to many conferences over the last few years, both auto-related and general internet. And I see that there's kind of two tendencies in these types of presentations that you hear. One is folks spend a lot of time trying to predict the future. Big claims about what's going to happen and what's going to unfold in 2 or 3 years, and how the technology trends that we're seeing today are going to impact what happens in a few years' time. Second thing you tend to see is that folks are really jumping on every big bandwagon, and mobile and social certainly haven't been immune to that. So there's been a lot of chats, and you may have seen some yourselves at NADA and other conferences. Hopefully today will be a little bit different in that I'm really going to try to stick to the facts and try and sort through a lot of the hoopla and pick up on the things that really matter to your business today. And hopefully in your questions you can keep me honest as well. So it's a little tongue-in-cheek that we start with this slide about we're in the middle of a mobile revolution. I want to try and really keep it real today and really focus on the practical implications of the technology shift that we're experiencing today and how they relate to car retailing, not in 2 or 3 years' time, but right now. What do we know about consumers and mobile right now that we need to understand and respond to? So I guess the first thing to wrap our heads around is that mobile isn't a change that's happening tomorrow. It's something that's really already pervasive. And I think really when we look back on it, we'll look at 2012, I think, as the year that mobile really arrived. It's the year it went from being something that we had to worry about in 2 or 3 years' time to the year that it just really landed on the scene and started impacting a lot of different kinds of businesses in a lot of different kinds of verticals, and automotive is no exception. The core thing here that's driving that is the penetration of smartphones in Canada. So we're at a point now where 50% of Canadians use a smartphone or a tablet. And when we look at that 50%, there's a slight male skew, 55% male, 45% female, but it's really pervasive. So that's huge and growing very, very quickly. By the end of next year, the projection is actually that grows 10% and 10% the year after, so that by 2016 we get to a point where 62% of Canadians are going to be using a smartphone device. And really, when we think from a car retailing perspective, if we take out all those folks who are too young to drive and too old to drive and look at everybody who's left in the middle, we're talking about an extremely high penetration, pretty much maxing out probably by 2016, where everybody who's in the market for a vehicle will have access to a smartphone device. So it's landed almost faster than the television did if we think back, in terms of a new device entering homes over a very short period of time. We're talking about 3 or 4 years getting from very, very small penetration to a very large penetration. So that's a very, very, very rapid change, much faster than major other shifts that we've seen in media. And unlike social, it's really completely pervasive. There's no specific particular demographic that this is concentrated in. So, the key takeaway here is that all Canadians by 2016 who are in the market for a car are going to have access to one of these devices. So what are they going to be doing with it? This is the kind of key thing. It's nice to have a smartphone when people have had a mobile phone for quite some time. But what's different about a smartphone, of course, and how it's defined is that it's a device that's connected to the internet. And that changes everything. It changes what you can do with this device. So what are Canadians doing? The key thing is there's the top three. The top three uses are staying connected. Now, to me, this one is no big surprise. We've used our phones to connect with people for a very long time. All that the smartphone does, it allows us to do it in more ways. So rather than just voice, we can now send messages via email, and most importantly as well, we can use our social networks to contact our friends right on the smartphone device. The next most common use case, and this is where the smartphone really expands how consumers go about their online lives, is it allows you to do research and reviews, and read news and find information about different things. The next big one, again, this one's no surprise to me, is that people are using their phones to navigate. So they're looking up directions, they're using maps on GPS. Really, this device is starting to replace the sat-nav. It's a personal GPS in your pocket, and that's a very common way that people are using it. Less popular, but somehow interesting, that it gets almost as much news as everything else, if not more, is keeping entertained. So we're talking here about games and watching videos, watching TV. For us in the retail space, this is probably less an important use case, but it is a personal entertainment device that people carry around. And lastly, and I think surprisingly here, only 45% are using this device to manage and plan. So in terms of scheduling their appointments and keeping organized and all of that. So just looking at how folks are using these devices, most of them are using it to contact people, to research and find out more information about things, and to navigate and locate things. And let's keep those three things in mind, because I'm going to come back to them a little bit later when we really bring this down to car retailing. Those are three use cases that are really important in shopping, about contacting people, finding information, and finding a location. So there are three things that really impact car retailing, and we're going to see a little bit later what that means in terms of how we advertise and sell vehicles. So let's try to bring this down to automotive. So for now, we've just really been looking at overall the mobile marketplace and just getting up to speed with how fast smartphone penetration is coming up, what those people who have smartphones are doing with them, and how that's different from a regular phone. Now let's try and bring it right down to car retailing. So there's a recent Google study done in 2012 that looked at Canadian auto shoppers and found that 1 in 4 of them are using smartphones during their vehicle purchase. That's in 2012. And we'll see some stats from Autotrader as well. I think that's probably going to be about 33% next year, and probably be close to half in 2014. So that trajectory is accelerating very, very quickly. But we're already at a place where 1 in 4 of the people that come to your forecourts will have used their mobile phone in the process of researching or purchasing that vehicle. That's already a very big deal. You can't afford, and none of us really can afford, to ignore 1 in 4 of the shoppers that come through our door, and the fact that they're accessing information relating to that purchase in a very different way. So the scale of this is already very significant. When we look at that group of people, the 1 in 4 shoppers who are using their phone to in the process of purchasing their vehicle, and we stop and we ask, well, what are they doing with that phone? This is what that same Google study has shown us. So that 48% of people are using that smartphone device to read reviews. 43% of them are using it to do some sort of price comparison. 41% are using it to look at pictures, and 41% are using it to research auto specs. So when I look at those 4 things, they're pretty much the same things that you will have seen and that I've seen come back from consumer research time and time again on the internet. So people will have the same needs in terms of their shopping process. They're now just able to access and meet those needs on a mobile device in a mobile way. And lastly here, and this is probably the no-brainer out of all of this, that people are using their phone to call you as well. So they're in the process of going through and researching, refining, looking at prices, and many of them are ending their journey with a phone call to their dealer on the smartphone. So that's really starting to introduce a theme for today, which is it's important that the information about your vehicles is present in the right way in the right context when these consumers are going through these steps, and particularly as they're getting to the business end of the process, that they can find your details and contact you. And we'll come to that in a little bit more detail in just a brief moment. So these are trends, as we sort of said, that our view at Trader is that 2012 was the year that mobile really arrived, particularly here in Canada. Globally, the picture has been a little bit different, with some other markets being a bit ahead. But I think Canada's caught up really, really quickly in 2012. We as Trader, as one of the larger online companies in the country, can't ignore those types of trends. So Isabel mentioned to you that over 20% of our visits now are coming from mobile. That is a significant proportion. So I guess 1 in 4, 1 in 5 of the people coming to our virtual forecourt are doing that with a mobile device. So we've spent the year investing very heavily in mobile. And for us, the first step really was to make sure that we had a really great experience across all of the devices and platforms that people are using to connect to the internet via their mobile device. And in the Q&A, if anybody likes, we can go into detail about which devices are more popular, how tablets versus phones change how people interact with automotive content. If you're interested in some of the debates around whether what's more important, to have an app or to have a mobile website, what does that mean? How do we need to look at changing content for a mobile device shape versus a larger screen? Those are all things I'm very happy to discuss with you. For us, the focus really was on the user experience in the first year and making sure that we had a great experience on all of the apps. We started with relaunching our iPhone app back in February of last year. We prioritized the iPhone because it's the most commonly used device and most intensively used device for online research. So we wanted to have a great experience there first. We followed that up with an Android launch this summer, and we've been refreshing our BlackBerry platform. Everybody knows the well-publicized troubles of BlackBerry. They've fallen behind the rest of the device manufacturers in terms of their experience and their user base. They have a much anticipated launch of their new BlackBerry operating system coming this winter. They actually approached us to be a launch partner with them. We've decided to hold back on that, given that only very few users will be on that device for the immediate future. So we're very much still focusing on Apple and Android while sort of keeping BlackBerry refreshed and maintained. But we think the innovation really is happening on Android and iPhone right now. And if that situation changes, of course, we're able to very quickly respond to that and move some of our priorities around. We're really proud of some of the feedback that we've had from our users this year. And I think in mobile, much as in social, there's a kind of a key difference, I guess, to just building for online when you're building an app for mobile, is that before anybody has access to your app, they're on the iTunes Store or in the Play Store for Google, and they see reviews of your app before they even download it. Now on the web, somebody would just type in www.autotrader.ca and turn up on our website. Uniquely in an app store environment, they see the opinions of other users before they even see our website. So it's extremely important that we actually can't, you can't afford to fail. You have to be absolutely spot on, and you have to get that experience right every time. So that's something that's been a very significant focus for us this year in terms of our apps. And that's gone very, very well. So we've grown our usage from 10% of our users to 20%. What's even more exciting about that usage trend that we're seeing on Autotrader.ca is that these aren't just browsers. They're not just folks who are just looking at pictures or wasting time, spending a bit of time looking at cars. We actually find that per user, they're giving us more leads than folks on our main website. So as it stands today, 26% of the email leads that we generate to our customers are actually coming from our mobile apps and our mobile platform, which is a huge shift that we've seen in a year. To stand here and say, a quarter of the leads that Autotrader generates to dealers in Canada are coming from mobile is a really big shift in a very short amount of time. And given the rate at which that's moving, again, it looks like just doing the straight projections will be at a third next year and close to 40 to 50% in the year after that. So this is a change that's happening very, very quickly, and it's telling us that consumers are preferring, in many ways and for many reasons, to use their mobile device to shop for a vehicle. And that's something that we really need to contend with. And again, what some of the things that we've learned along the way as we've done this, and we look through our stats and analytics, is that these mobile shoppers are not just browsing or finding content and trying to get a really quick hit, which we kind of thought, well, the screen is small, it might be a little bit more difficult to use. I'm going to look at fewer vehicles, or I'm going to be very directed in what I want to do. I might just, I know exactly which dealer I want to look for, exactly which car. But we're finding that there's a lot of deep browsing and researching behavior. So when we look at some of the deeper stats on our mobile devices, we find that the average time per visit on one of our mobile apps is just under 10 minutes, which is actually quite a long time. And it indicates that people are really deep in the process of researching, and they're very serious about finding information in that session. We also find that people are executing over 15 pages per visit. And when we dig down into this, we see that they're looking at multiple dealers and multiple vehicles in a session. So they're really doing a lot of comparison type activity. They're quite far down, we believe, in the funnel of buyers, and they're actively comparing multiple vehicles of similar types to understand what the best deal and what the right vehicle for them is. And in terms of the volume that we're seeing of searches on our mobile sites, that's now at over 9 million vehicle searches per month for passenger vehicles. So the scale has just become tremendous in a very short period of time. So what I want to do now is kind of, and this will lead into the discussion. I said this would be a short presentation, and I'll hold true to that. So we won't have too many more slides to go. But I just sort of wanted to recap here for a second before moving on. So we talked about the fact that mobile isn't a future trend. It's not something that's coming. It's something that is really happening now. It's being driven by the fact that a lot more people have smartphones, that most of the folks, most of the demographics that would be in the market for a vehicle now have a phone, and that's really going to top out by 2016 where pretty much everybody's going to have one. What that means is that everyone's connected. They all have a device now that's very powerful, allows them to do a lot more than they used to be able to do with just a straight mobile phone. And those key use cases that I shared with you were connecting and contacting people, researching and finding more information about things, and navigating. And now I want to take a moment to try to unpack and understand how that affects the car retailing and the car buying experience for users. So we looked at a little bit about how Autotraders had to invest very, very heavily to keep up with this change and the success that we've had. And as we do that, and as these consumers have access to our apps and other automotive apps, and they get more and more comfortable with using them, we're starting to drive the change in your direction. So a year or two ago, Autotrader apps weren't, we had only 10% of our traffic, I think, last year on mobile. There weren't many apps out there. Now it's quite common. We think we've got, just over 1 in 8, I think, iPhones in Canada have our app on it now. So that's almost, if you think 1 in 8 iPhones, out of those folks, the people who are actually in the market to buy a car, we've got most of them. There's over 600,000 downloaded installs for our iPhone application and a couple 100,000 of our Android application. So pretty much all the in-market car buyers in Canada now have an Autotrader app that have a smartphone, have an Autotrader app installed on it, just running it by the numbers. So that's driving a really powerful change that is coming to your dealership. These people are mobile, they have our app, they're coming to see you. So there's no textbook written on what that means and how you're supposed to respond to it. Now, obviously, we have some thoughts and I've got some thoughts that I'd like to share with you, but this is where hopefully we can have a bit of discussion together. What does it mean that now a quarter of Autotrader's visits are coming from mobile? All of these shoppers who are really close to the end of the funnel are using this app, and they're coming to your dealership with this app installed, with this information, and of course using other sources of content. They're not restricted to using Autotrader. They'll be using other sources of content on their mobile phones as well. And I think there's really kind of 3 things that you need to be thinking about, or 3 things that are affecting you in this change. The first thing is that what worked yesterday doesn't change tomorrow. And I guess this has been a theme throughout a lot of the technology-driven changes that we've been seeing in this industry over the last few years, that a lot of the basics and fundamentals of selling vehicles haven't changed. And it's no different with mobile, but here specifically, the things that we've learned over the last few years about, what's really important in terms of online retail for vehicles and online vehicle marketing, those things don't change with mobile. So what do I mean by that? Good SEO. Good SEO is extremely important if you're going to succeed and grow your business online. Now, that doesn't change with mobile. All the fundamentals of SEO remain the fundamentals for mobile. In fact, sometimes, in some respects, they get even more important. So things like Google Places, for example, become very important, and we'll talk about location in just a minute. Having an effective web presence and being found, having access to the core information for your vehicles and for your brand, like your things like the basics, like your address, phone number, and all of that, and having that available on a mobile device, those things are very, very important. So the basics and fundamentals stay the same in terms of what you need to be doing. So when you cover those bases for your overall web strategy, you can rest confident that you're covering those bases for your mobile web strategy as well. Okay, so that core remains the same. There's another way in which fundamentals are the same, and this is where, yes, it's important that it's a mobile device, but one thing that we also need to recognize and stay a little bit realistic about, and one thing that we're learning through a lot of consumer research in the industry about, is, well, how do people use this mobile device? One of the most popular ways that consumers use their smartphones is at home on the couch. Most of the internet usage on mobile devices still today is in Wi-Fi zones. Okay, so connected to wireless internet and a broadband connection. So not roaming 3G mobile, but actually at home. So a very, very common use case for a mobile or a tablet is I'm sitting at home, I'm watching TV, there's a TV commercial, or I'm multitasking and I'm browsing internet content while I'm sat on the couch. So it's effectively like another laptop in the home. So a lot of again, this reinforces why the same fundamentals are important. There are many, many differences, but a good proportion of these folks are just using these devices in a very similar way to what they've been using before. So, yes, mobile is extremely important. We do need to understand it, but let's also recognize, before we get too excited about how everything is changing overnight, that a lot of the device usage that we're seeing with these mobile devices is very, very similar to what we're seeing online. So it's important that we're present. It's important that we can be found, but those are the same fundamentals that apply to online. So ticking the first box isn't that difficult. If we're good at our core online marketing basics, we go a long way to getting our mobile strategy in place. The second thing, this is where it starts to get different. Now, if you remember back in one of the earlier slides, we talked about the important use cases for consumers. And one of the very important use cases we talked about was navigation. And those of you with smartphones will probably have had this experience. You're halfway between here and there, and you realize, I don't know exactly where I'm going. So you start to use your phone as a GPS. Just type in an address, and away you go. You'll get a map, you'll get directions, and you can start to navigate. That's really important for findability. And I think one of the things to understand around mobile is that the SEO game is a little bit different. And being found is a lot about your location being found and where you are. So this is where things like Google Places become very, very important in ensuring that you are optimized in Google Places so that people can find you on their map. The other thing about location and understanding about this device is that people who are using these mobile phones and doing this research, it's another symptom, I guess, of people being less patient. Instead of preparing ahead of time and, say, printing out your map before you leave, you know that you can get the information while you're on the way. You're starting to create a confidence that whatever information you need, be it directions or research, etc., you can get it when you need it. You don't have to prepare so much in advance, and you're confident that you've got this sort of backup for any situation. that sort of takes us to the third point where this really starts. You need to, and you guys will know a lot more about this than I will, so I'll just hopefully introduce the concept to you. But in terms of how this matters to your business and how you need to respond to it, this is where your expertise as car retailers really comes in. What I think is really going to change how cars are sold in Canada over the next year or two is that people are turning up on the forecourt with this, on your lot with this mobile device. If I say forecourt, I've spent a few years in the UK, and that's the term for the lot over there. So I apologize if that's coming across as a UK colloquialism. But people are going to be turning up on your lot with this device. And that other need that we talked about in terms of research and finding information, if you combine that consumer need, which comes up in a lot of research, with this on-demand kind of mentality that consumers now have, which is, I'm going to get the information when I need it, that really starts to change the types of conversation I would expect you're going to start having as you're trying to sell a vehicle to a consumer arriving on your lot. Not only will they have come preloaded with a lot of information and research, and we've all seen how that's really changed the conversations that dealers are having with consumers and salespeople at your dealerships are having with consumers on the lot. As reviews have become more prevalent, as spec information, pricing information has become more prevalent online, it changes the conversations that you're having at the dealership. Well, now what's going to start happening, and what is happening more and more with already 1 in 4 consumers using this mobile device, is that they're going to have access to that information on your lot. So you need to think about how that changes the role of the salesperson in your dealership. And the salesperson in your dealership needs to understand and respect, frankly, the fact that the consumer has all of that power and information. So there's 2 kinds of scenarios I guess I'd throw out for consideration. One is the researcher or the uncomfortable shopper, maybe doesn't know exactly if this is the right model for them, not sure about the specs, maybe the jargon confuses them. It's a great opportunity for a salesperson right now to build trust with that consumer, to explain, to show them a few different options, and to walk them through that process. But consumers generally prefer to find the information themselves, and a lot of the research that we've done shows that consumers still feel that when they arrive at the dealership, they are at a disadvantage to the salesperson because they don't have enough information. You kind of feel like, this person knows more than I do. And as a result, they don't trust the dealership. And there's a big trust barrier our research shows between consumers and dealers. Kind of feel like they might get taken advantage of simply because that dealer or that salesperson knows so much more than they do, and they can get, frankly, a little bit bamboozled. So with this mobile device and the access they've got to owner reviews, to reviews of vehicles, to car specs, they can fact check and do all of that prep right on the lot. So let's say you've left a customer waiting for 5 minutes because your salesperson is with somebody else. If you see them take a mobile phone out of their pocket, they could really be doing a lot of deep research right then and there in your showroom. Another use case outside of research, which I think is a bit more challenging, concerning, controversial, is that, well, at the same time as that user's doing that research, really the other thing that we found when we've talked to consumers is, what are they really concerned with when they're at that point of buying a vehicle is that they're getting the best possible price. And the internet has done a really good job of teaching people that you can go online to shop for the best possible price. And we think that consumers are more and more going to want to do this right before they commit to a purchase. So, in the sales process, you could have somebody who's you've qualified in your dealership. They're ready to move forward with a purchase. Maybe you're sending them over to the finance manager. They need to wait for a little while for the finance manager, or you're doing an inspection of their vehicle, and that's taking 5-20 minutes to do. Well, here's another opportunity for that mobile phone to come out and for some really deep price comparison to start happening. So now I'm a consumer, and I'm right at the bottom of the funnel. I'm ready to purchase a car, and I want to make sure that the price that I now have, which is a firm price from this dealership, is the best possible price. And more so, the internet is allowing me to do that right then and there. And this is another opportunity for your local competitors, because now we combine this with the trend of location that we talked about, to get in and showcase their wares, even though that consumer is on your forecourt. So that starts to change the game of how we need to manage the conversation with the consumer in the dealership. It also means it opens up a new competitive frontier for you. So those, particularly as this is a time of change and not everybody is going to get on board with these trends at the same rate, it allows those folks who are a bit savvier to this trend to go start marketing to these consumers before the rest of the dealers do. So it's definitely a fact that not everybody is going to get up to speed with marketing in this mobile space at the same rate. And as with the online shift that happened a few years ago, those dealers who are effective in marketing online and using mobile will access those mobile consumers better and quicker than their competitors, and will be able to steal business away from their competitors. It's a competitive game, and mobile opens up a new competitive frontier. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. People like Autotrader.ca and the other sites that are out there are continuing to arm consumers with more information. That's what consumers want. And we're also giving you better tools to compete for those consumers. And we're evolving the tools that we give you to compete for consumers as the different devices evolve. So hopefully that starts to try to bring this trend or this change in terms of technology back to what does it mean for car retailing. So just recapping those three things. At the base of it, at the core, mobile is still internet. Mobile internet is still internet. And it just means it's more important to have the basics of your online marketing strategy right, that you're present on Autotrader.ca, that you have a website. Yes, it's important to have a mobile website. We can talk about that in some of the discussion. But it's most important and critical to have your core website optimized for SEO and to have key information available for your site, so that even if you don't have a mobile website, your main site can still be found on a mobile. It's obviously more sophisticated and preferable to have a mobile site, but you can still achieve a lot of the fundamentals with just your principal online marketing strategy. So that's number one. Number two, location and mapping are very, very important. People are trying to find you, so focus on things like Google Places and findability. That trend of location and being mobile with the device means that people are coming to your doorstep, to your showroom, not only aren't pre-armed with information, but actually looking for information while they're in your showroom. And that last point, I think, is the one that's going to drive the most change. It means you need to change, I think, a little bit about, you need to think differently anyhow about the sales process in your dealership, and start to understand and recognize the different needs that consumers with mobile devices have in terms of the type of conversation that they want and need with your salespeople. And you also need to be very mindful to the new competitive frontier that on-the-lot research and on-the-lot price comparison opens up. So those are things I think that will become more important as the percentage of folks turning up in your dealerships with mobile phones increases. So that's sort of, I think, how this will mainly impact car retailing over the next little while. I'll just end, if I may, on a very brief teaser for a product that we'll be launching next year. And in January of next year, late January, early February, called Mobile Boost, and hopefully your trader rep will be talking to you about this over the next few weeks. As we've seen these shoppers and the growth of mobile increase, we're absolutely, first of all, focused on just making sure we had the core experience right in terms of allowing people to search and research, and the feedback we've had on that is phenomenal. And now what we're starting to hear from our customers is, well, how can I compete for those leads? If a quarter of your leads are coming from Autotrader mobile, how do I get a greater share of those leads than my competitors? And we're going to be introducing a product that will allow you to do that. We have a few of these types of products on our main website, priority listings, provincial priority listings, etc. And we'll have the first one of those in our mobile environment coming very soon, called Mobile Boost. But I won't go into, respecting your time today, I won't go into too much of that detail or any sort of pitch for that. But I just thought I'd introduce it to you, that it's something that is coming. And if you're interested, then your trader rep will be able to walk you through that over the next couple of weeks. So hopefully that content was informative. I promised that it wouldn't be a very long presentation with too many slides. So hopefully you've been able to glean something out of it. We did cover a bit of content in that short period of time. I'm happy to return to any themes, answer any questions, or just open up a discussion with you on the floor. So with that, thank you very much for your attention. I'm going to pass back to Isabel now to moderate any questions that we might have.
So we have a few questions. So feel free, like Papa mentioned, to ask questions using the Q&A section on your laptop or computer at the bottom of the screen. So we have a question from Gilles. So Edwin, do you have a number on how many people use their smartphone to buy things? I guess this relates to general shopping.
I actually don't, Gilles. I don't have with me. There are some stats out there, but I don't have it in my prep for today in terms of mobile commerce and actual checkout process. It's not something that we've focused on. I mean, when it comes to vehicle retailing, I think we're still quite far away from people actually, doing a full vehicle purchase online, let alone on a mobile device. I think the more important use is in the research process. And really what's happening is that it's more of a multi-channel purchase than ever. So we've always known that people are using multiple channels to purchase their vehicle. They're researching using the internet. They're researching on in your showrooms. Some are still researching using printed publications. Everyone's researching using word of mouth and their friends and family, and the mobile device is just another channel in that mix. The degree to which it's used as a final kind of click here checkout is probably a little bit less so, but I don't have the stats specifically for the retail sector.
Okay, another question from Scott. Will a dealership mobile app have the same look and feel as the Autotrader.ca app, for example?
Right. So there's two parts to this question that I'll address. The first thing is the dealership mobile app. So we don't have any plans right now as Trader to offer you dealership mobile apps. We think that mobile websites are the way to go for dealerships primarily. There may be some cases where you may want to go out and develop an app for yourselves, but I think that's fairly limited, and I'll explain why. The investment in an app is going to be fairly considerable compared to the cost of developing your website for mobile. So I think it's going to be very hard for businesses of that size to justify creating a custom app unless you're a very significant group, maybe with a lot of business and service, etc., where maybe I can see more of a use case for an app. People, when we look at consumer usage for automotive, and there's a huge debate that rages in the online community about apps versus mobile sites, and whether in 10 years' time we're all going to have apps on our phones and there won't be any mobile sites, or the other way around. Let's put that aside for now. I don't, what happens in 10 years' time, nobody can predict. What's happening right now, and what we see right now, and what we know from stats, and we can see this from our stats because we have both the app and the mobile site, is that when people are doing something very frequently, so like every day, when they're doing something very intensively, so that, maybe it's not a daily thing, but for the next week I'm going to be doing this a lot, or I'm going to do this once or twice, but I'm going to spend a lot of time on it. So when I'm doing something very frequently or very intensively, I want to have an app on my phone because it's quicker to get to. I've got slightly richer functionality in it, and I can do a little bit more with that app. If I'm accessing something occasionally, if I'm not doing it frequently or intensively, then I generally prefer to go into a mobile web browsing experience. So if I'm searching for, if I'm, say, searching for a restaurant, for example, and I'm only doing that once in a while, I probably don't want to have the Foursquare application on my phone, right? I'll just want to go in, type it into Google like I've always done, and away I go. If I'm shopping for a car, I want to be using Autotrader quite intensively for a period of 3 or 4 weeks. So I'm going to go to the effort to go and download that application. Would I download an application for every dealer? There's the challenge. There's where it's going to be very difficult because you have to think about the iTunes Store where the apps are located, where consumers go and download them, and the Google Play Store. A bit like Google from an SEO perspective, it's another place where you need to struggle to be found. And you need to think to yourself, how are you going to get a consumer to find your app in that store, competing with all of the other apps that are out there? That's going to be pretty hard because consumers probably aren't going to be likely to be typing in your brand when they're in that iTunes store. It'll be difficult to get a volume of them to do that. So I think your install base, the number of people who install and find your app as an individual dealership, will likely be fairly low, and it's a whole other place that you're going to need to invest to be found in these stores, and that can be difficult for a small brand to do. So for those reasons, I think it's very limited the cases where it would make sense for a dealership to invest in an application. That doesn't mean there aren't places where it will make sense, and for larger dealerships, there may be an opportunity to do that. I think it's more effective at this point in time with the way that people are using mobile sites to just ensure that you are found on a mobile device in the web browser. So I would ask you all, even if you don't have a mobile website, to just go and search for your brand names in Google on a mobile device. Have a look at where you rank. Have a look at what that experience looks like. It ain't going to always be pretty, right? Because this is not a website that's been designed specifically for a mobile phone. But you don't need that's not too bad. That's still the fairly common experience of what consumers are getting. What's important is that they can see your phone number very quickly. They can see your address very quickly, because most of the time that's what they'll be looking for when they're searching on your name. So I think that's the kind of key thing from a mobile website perspective. Then after that, you can kind of get a little bit more sophisticated about how you build your search, et cetera, for your mobile site, and that's something that we're working with our DSS team to evolve our websites to be more effective for that mobile environment. It won't always look the same. Last kind of component of your question. Your sites and what works for you as an individual dealership isn't always what works for Autotrader.ca. You always need to remember that we are trying to create an environment that allows users to compare all the vehicles in the market. You're really trying to compete and hone. Once you've got a user, you're really trying to keep them within your vehicles on your site. You're trying to develop your brand with your own website. You're trying to offer, if you're a franchise dealership, you're trying to put forward your servicing, your financing, and some of your other products. So you've got very different goals on your site than we do as Autotrader. So some things will naturally be very different, and things will need to look different on your sites versus ours. Other things we're all bound by the fact that the screens are smaller. It means we have to be much more sparing with use of images and graphics, because also people are on 3G, et cetera, still. So some things will be the same, some things will be different. So hopefully that kind of addresses the different parts of your question.
Good, thanks, Edwin. Another question from Nessim, asking about posting ads and writing your ad. Is there something that he needs to do differently, taking into consideration that 1 out of 4 people are looking at the ads from a mobile device?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think that's an insightful question. I think the area that, and actually if you look at the screenshot that we've got up right now, which is the list view on our iPhone app, one of the things that is kind of an obvious thing to say about a mobile device, but it bears repeating time and time again, is that there's a lot less screen real estate. So less is more on the mobile device. We have less room to show things. We can't crowd the space because it becomes very difficult to use, especially on a touch screen. You have to think, there's some pretty fat thumbs out there. So we have to put a lot of white space between buttons and things, which even reduces even more the space that we have for pictures and text. So really are working with a limited amount of space. And the key difference that you'll see here with the way that your listings appear on the app versus the full website is that the description isn't there. There are fewer details, and that vehicle headline now becomes very, very important. So that's where you need to focus. When we look at vehicle headlines and what's important in them, there's 2 things: getting across the year, make, model, and trim, and then you will know what the key marketable components of that trim are that you really need to push. Is it an S-Line Audi? Is it what is the core spec of that vehicle that makes it really stand out? But you can't use too many words, otherwise it gets unwieldy and difficult for consumers to read. So I think, yes, there is a difference. You've got less space to work with. You have to be even more focused on what you're getting across in those first 50 characters.
Okay. And a secondary question from Nissim about the option to FaceTime or Tango the dealership straight from the app.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's not in our short-term plans, but it's another insightful question. Earlier in the presentation, we said the most common thing that people use their mobile phones for, use the internet on their mobile phones for, is to connect to other people, right? We said a big use case there was social, so people are doing a lot of Facebooking. And email is actually the most common connectivity usage of the internet portion of a phone. So it's natural to think about how can that be extended, and can we start some conversations going right then and there on the mobile phone. I think we'd actually be interested in doing that. I think it's a fairly limited use case right now, just from the perspective of at the dealership, you'd need to be staffed up and ready to work with that. So the key thing we can't do is disappoint consumers. So if we put these FaceTime, Skype, Tango, or any other presence-aware contact method right there in the app, the expectation from the user is that there's always somebody on the other end. And if you don't have anybody on the other end, then you're better not having the option at all. So that's one I'd be happy to talk to. I'll talk to our reps and take the temperature of dealers in the various markets and see when people would be ready to try something like that. I'd be interested in that type of functionality in the app for sure.
Good. And we have another question from Wayne asking about the Trader Dealer website. So they have a Trader Dealer website. Is it configured to work, show well on mobile devices?
Yep.
So Edwin, and I do have an answer for that as well.
Yeah, go ahead, Isabel, if you want to chime in on that first, and I'm happy to give my opinion on it as well.
So essentially, in terms of the Trader Dealer website, we have an a la carte product that's part of our packages that is the mobile site's a la carte product. So essentially, when you buy your basic package, your T1000 or T2000 package with the dealer website, it is not optimized for mobile, but we have an a la carte product that you add onto your package that makes the site mobile ready. So that's sort of the answer in terms of solution from a solution standpoint.
Thanks, Isabel. So that's the kind of official trader marketing line is you can buy an upgrade to make it more mobile friendly, which is absolutely right. You can buy that. I'm going to give you the inside line because I like to be a straight shooter, and you guys have taken the time to join this call, which is I think that every website should have basic functionality that makes it mobile friendly. It won't be friendly on every device, but on the most common ones, say an iPhone, you should have a look at your sites, and they won't always look pretty, but if you can't find the basic information like the address and the phone, I think you should talk to your rep about that and put some pressure on us to make sure that we're doing that for you, because it should be, right? All websites should, at a very, very basic level, be able to show who is your brand, where are you, and what is your contact information, and that information should be accessible on a mobile device. It won't be pretty. If you contact us and say it doesn't look nice on a mobile phone, absolutely we'll say, well, that's because it isn't built to do that and you should buy this add-on. But you should be able to find that information, in my opinion. And if you can't, then reach out to us. We should work on your behalf to respond to that.
Good. Thank you for that insight, Edwin.
No problem.
In terms of, one last question from Jill. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to type them in. If not, I believe this is the last question of the webinar, and this is a nice tie-in with the mobile boost. When we buy priority ads, does it work with the Autotrader app too?
Yeah. No, they don't. So we've had, and this is the way that it's been working ever since we've had a mobile app, there's been no priority on the mobile app. All of the listings have appeared as natural organic listings, and they've all appeared on there as part of your core package. So there's never been, so that's the first thing to cover, is that all of your listings, if you have a package with Autotrader and your listings are on autotrader.ca, for no additional charge, those listings also appear in our mobile audience. And as we've grown our mobile audience, we've just grown those leads and that value to you as part of what we do for you. When you buy a priority listing, those listings are specifically designed to work for the desktop internet. And what do I mean by that? We have 10 of them at the top. We're testing actually different combinations of 10 on the first page, 5 on the second page, different heights, and we're constantly tweaking and optimizing those for conversion to make sure you get maximum advantage for your priorities. And we're doing that for desktop web. They are not designed to work on mobile. We have a different user experience on mobile, and we have to be conscious of different things that has to work differently. That's why we haven't extended those out to mobile until now. We are going to introduce a new product to allow dealers to compete in the mobile environment, and that's what I mentioned very briefly earlier as Mobile Boost. And this is a mobile upgrade, listing upgrade that is specifically designed to work for the mobile environment. So we'll have a lot more to say to you about that over the next couple of weeks. It's pretty exciting. We've got, well, I won't steal the thunder from our reps. They'll have, and I don't want to go into a pitch either. I don't think that's a good use of everyone's time, but that's coming soon.
Okay, and that's it for questions. So thank you very much, Edwin. We have recording, we are recording this session. So please stay tuned. We'll be uploading on YouTube and then sending a link to everyone with the recording of this webinar. And if you have any questions, I believe, Edwin, on the next slide, we have a phone number that you can call to learn more about the upcoming product that Edwin mentioned or any other of our other mobile offerings. So on that note, thank you very much, and we look forward to speaking with you soon.
Thank you, Isabel, and thank you, everyone, for attending today.